Hey Dale, welcome back to Talon Talks. It's been a nice week. Um, Obviously, our focus is exploration, and that's the profession that we're in right now. Do you have a good weekend? How was your fishing adventures this weekend?
Yeah, not bad. It was nice weather. Fish are a bit hard to find right now. Lake's deeper than it normally is, but yeah, can't complain.
Yeah, I was lucky to get out Saturday, anyways. So it was nice to be out and about. Um, there's a couple of events I wish I could have participated in, but just not enough hours in a day.
Yeah. You're
So
in Timmins at the moment?
yeah, I'm in Timmins right now. I've got the pleasure of dealing with working with our communities out here that we're involved with, Matachewan and Apatippi. It's always nice to get to the communities and do what we love doing. Just it's actually really nice to take a break once in a while and sit down with them and just chat with them.
Right on.
Um, yeah, I guess before we get into our next guest, everybody, just feel free, and we hope that you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay tuned on our Talon website as to what's happening. I know Ricky, our technical wizard, he's been keeping people informed on WhatsApp and not WhatsApp, sorry, LinkedIn. So everybody pay attention to that as well. So without further ado, our next guest is a well-known chief. He's a strong proponent for First Nations issues. He's very astute in the economic development sector, and he knows how to basically sit down and work out any type of agreements or not agreements, but work with exploration companies, mining companies, Hydro One, just whatever he puts his mind to. He is a lawyer. Um, don't hold that against us. I know that lawyers can be very wordy, but not this fellow. It's his name is Wilfred King. He's the chief for Gull Bay First Nation, and we'd like to bring you into the fold here, Wilfred. Hello, Wilfred.
Good afternoon, Robert. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yourself?
Good.
It's my partner.
Wilfred, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
It's a very exciting podcast. It goes worldwide. You'll be happy to know that you'll be heard on all 4 points of Thunder Bay and beyond.
That's good.
Uh, I just gave you an introduction, Wilfred, into your knowledge and background into economic development and your important partnerships that you've created for your community. Most recently the catering joint venture with Lac des Îles, which I know after talking with you, it was a very successful um, endeavor. But you're not limited to that. And if you would share with us, some of the opportunities that you've taken your community into.
Sure. Well, Lac des Îles Mine, which is owned by Impala right now, we've entered into negotiations with the previous owner in terms of securing the catering contract, and we're at 10 years on that agreement as of this year. And that's been a very good relationship that we had in regard to our JV partner and providing that service to the mine site. In addition to that, we also have a contract on the concentrate hall, which is also a very good contract and benefits our community quite greatly.
Wow. That so the concentrate hall that where is that being processed?
That's being processed in either Sudbury or in Quebec, as well as the other processing plant. So they have two places where they process the material.
Dale,
So
you
do
can.
you haul by truck to a rail or
Yes,
straight?
no, it's straight by truck all the way through the provincial highway.
Great. That sounds like a good contract.
It's very good as well. That's another one of our good contracts that we have with the mine.
Wow,
Nice.
impressive. So what else have you been able to? I know that you're quite busy, Wilfred, and I know you were into a lot of negotiations. I don't want to get too deep into it, but just generally, what other opportunities were you able to seize for your community, or were you able to leverage through not only this negotiation but other negotiations that you've partaked in?
Well, I think it's really important that First Nations are in a very unique situation. Uh, some of our First Nations have very strong treaties, and our rights are constitutionally protected. And part of that is that when you're dealing with companies, for example, they have to understand that communities have constitutional provisions that protect their treaties. And part of that is, getting companies to understand that if they deal with First Nations right on the onset, the relationship would be much better moving forward. And I think that it's important that companies that deal with First Nations on the onset and engage them at the really early stages, the relationship is much better rather than, development taking place and then trying to find a way in later. So.
That's a key point, and it's been our philosophy, Rob, with Talon and our exploration companies that we deal with is get in at the very, very onset of any activity and talk to the communities. And exactly, you're right. Your progress with them and with the government is going to be a lot better, smoother if you do it that way.
Yes, it is. And I think it's important that even though we haven't come to a final agreement with Impala Canada, we had some negotiation. Unfortunately, those negotiations went off the rails about 6 months ago. And we're trying to re-engage the company to come back on board and recommence those negotiations. Because I think it's important that the operators of that mine site understand that this is Galway First Nations traditional territory. We're the most impacted community. And for them to walk away from any kind of agreement with Gull Bay doesn't send the right message in terms of that relationship. And I see companies that work with First Nations that have a very, very healthy relationship. And you could name them, a few of them in Canada that there's a really good relationship with the First Nation communities, and there's a mutual benefit as well. And one of the key things I think was so important is that what I've been told is that when companies work with local communities, there is a greater degree of cooperation, a greater degree of benefits going to both sides. And I think it's important that you see a lot of local labor being hired, and you don't have transient workers coming in. And often the local labor tends to stay longer, and they make a career out of the activity in their territory. So it's really important. It lowers the cost for bringing outside workers in to fill in those jobs at the mine site.
Wilford, that's what Dale was just referencing. That's basically how we try and operate. And I know you and I have had discussions in the past. One of the things that we've tried to encourage, and I know it's a ways away yet, but to be honest, there's sometimes where we would rather deal with permits between the First Nations and the company, the proponent, rather than go to Ontario and then back to the First Nations. It should be the way that we've always approached it, and Dale, you can attest to this. Um, we've always gone to the First Nation first, and if the province wants to follow in, that's fine. And there's been a lot of times where they have come in behind afterwards.
Yes, I think that's so important. You hit the nail right on the head. I think if you have companies that come in and engage the communities right from the onset and say, okay, we're looking at a proposed development here. Those that are into the mining and understand mining is that you could have 1,000 sites that have potential, but out of those 1,000, maybe one out of 1,000 will become an active mine. So a lot of explorations get stymied or doesn't develop into the next phase because of that animosity between the First Nation and the company. And I think if they engage the community right from the onset and not rely and depend on the government permitting, because the government permitting does not take into consideration the First Nations views on that development. Now, I know I've talked to numerous First Nations that say we're not opposed to mining, we're not opposed to development. In fact, they see and could realize the benefits from a mine in their territory, but it has to be early engagement. It has to be based on mutual respect. It has to be based on also environmental concerns. And a lot of times you could mitigate those environmental concerns that the First Nation may have. So yeah, it's important that if they get the blessing prior to applying for the permit, the process would go much smoother. And again, providing that capacity to the community so they have a full understanding of the technical and the legal terms that are used in these environmental studies and also any kind of engineering studies. So it's important, very much so.
Yeah. Well, you hit on 3 or 4 really important points there. One being the likelihood of an exploration project becoming a mine is very low. The other, really, one of the big things that Rob and I have been pushing is the fact that the exploration business is a major industry on itself. It's not necessarily mining. And if the more that First Nations become aware and involved in the exploration industry, the better I think everybody is, because it's a big business on itself, right? And it's very, up and down. But the more, and frankly, most of it takes place on, if not all of it, in Canada at least, on First Nation territory. So the more they can become involved and educated in exploration before, never mind mining, just in exploration, I think the better off everybody is.
Yeah, and that's exactly. And I think there's even potential for First Nation communities that could earn some money and revenue from even exploration activities. And I think that's so important, right? And when you're doing exploration, people are often looking for investors. And I think what's so important is that you want to make sure there's legal certainty there. And most investors will not invest in an area where there's local First Nations that are opposing development, or you might run into civil disobedience or so forth. So if you have that positive relationship and with those communities, and also in addition to that, I think it's not so much if there's a regional project, you have to include all the communities and making sure that everybody's on board, everybody's given the same information, the same opportunities. And now the most impacted community obviously should get more, because it's rightfully so. That those most impacted communities should probably get a little more in terms of any kind of agreement that is made with the proponent. But yeah, I think there's a real opportunity in First Nations getting involved in exploration as well.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I want to go back on, Wilfred, and that's environmental. The environmental side, it seems to be, it's almost become a fear-mongering opportunity for communities who are not sure if they want to step forward or go forward, and then they can perpetuate, the wrongdoings in the past. And don't get me wrong, I know that there have been some terrible actors in the mining side in the past. But moving forward in us trying to get our foot out the door, it can become challenging sometimes. And you get you have groups or regional activity, and you're right, you're absolutely right. The closer the community to the project, rightfully so, should be saying that, look, I think we should get a little bit more than what's going around here.
Mhm.
And even that there even may be an opportunity down further the road to say, Obviously, there's going to be impact benefit agreements at some point. That's further down the road. That's actually in the mine build stage. But, you know, in the early exploration, you know, it's just about uh, you mentioned certainty for the investors and legal certainty, but one thing that we try and do is that we try and provide opportunities for communities to step in at an early stage, which adds certainty to a project.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's so important that when you talk about the environmental, like you said, there's been some bad actors in the past. You know, like we look at certain types of mining is very detrimental to the environment. And First Nations understand that. It's just that what is the technical know-how to look at those studies, review those reports, and as long as they have the information and the knowledge to make those kind of assessments, then you're way ahead of the game, rather than being left in the cold and not knowing what's going on, and you're not privy to some of those reports because you're not engaging that community. That's where the problems arise. And I think, like I said, there are mitigation efforts that can be done, and it's got to be a trust relationship. Though I think that's so important, is that you have to trust your partner in terms of your going ahead with a project. So
Yeah, and when it comes to environment, the the positive thing about exploration is it's not obviously not as impactful on the environment as mining is, and therefore it should be easier to understand. Now, exploration I've found over the years is in a lot of communities gets lumped in with mining, and that deters the exploration potential. It also, like exploration, leads to a greater understanding of what potential economic benefits are in the area. Like, even if you don't find anything, you'll at least have an idea of what surrounds the community, right?
yeah, no, absolutely. I think that PDAC does a wonderful job in terms of providing that knowledge. And again, those that don't know nothing about mining, they think you're doing exploration work, that there's going to be a mine there. That's not always the case. And often you find nothing, or there's not enough of that deposit to make it economically feasible. So yeah, I think but again, I think it's important that the communities, the companies, reach out to the communities at the very onset and say, all we're doing is exploration work. We're not sure if we're going to find anything. Maybe if there is a big find. And I think what's so important is that the companies, we all know exploration companies, then often sell off their holdings, and then another company comes in and buys them up, and then all of a sudden the mine is developed. So that relationship has to extend beyond the exploration companies to the actual builder of the mine site. So yeah, I think it's important at the very early stages, and understanding that yeah, it's only exploration, and there may never be a mine here. And I think what has people have to recognize as well is that often market conditions changes everything as well. If your product or commodity is not reaching those levels on market, you don't have a site, you don't have a mine. It's just the price of that commodity is so low, and that it's not economically feasible to open up a mine.
Yeah, sorry, these cycles change fast, right? And so you want to try to get decisions made as quick as possible. Like, look at lithium today versus even 1 year ago.
Yeah.
It's in the dumps, and you can't find investment money for lithium projects now. But 1 year ago, that's where all the money was going. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's it's crazy that way.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing with the price of palladium right now. It's so low that it's because of the lithium market kind of sunk the palladium market.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things, and understanding geopolitics and what's happening globally as well is very important.
Don't get upset with us, Wilfred, because your palladium uh, little market is, yeah, it's you're right. It affects a lot of things. I guess one of the things that we were quite anxious to speak to you about. Um, you've been able to access, I guess, some alternative energy fields for your community. How is that going?
Well, you know what? It's at first we thought it would have been a very good alternative, and we're finding out now that it's probably not the best use of what's available. We have a
Can I stop? I'll stop you
sure,
there.
sure.
Just to let you know, it's a solar farm.
Yeah, the solar farm, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was supposed to reduce our diesel consumption, and it was supposed to also make money for our community. But because of the technology, it's just not there yet. And we feel that solar energy is probably not the best way of getting off diesel. I think it's important to look at other sources of energy. And I know it's only one component of alternative energy sources, but I would not recommend a solar farm because of the size of it and that sort of thing.
So basically, it may supply a bit of an offset, but not definitely you can't depend on it.
No, yeah.
Yeah. What about hydro to the community? Is that
That
something you're
that's
looking at?
that's yes, very much so. That's really important that hydro is a very good dependable energy source, and it's the most cost-effective energy source as well. And we feel that grid connection to our community would be the best advantage for our community.
Yeah, that's that's actually very good information. I appreciate you sharing that with us, Wilfred. That's um, for I know a lot of people will be tuning into this to look at the exploration side, but when you're looking at alternative ways of potentially providing energy to projects, that would definitely you've just enlightened a lot of people with that with your I
Well,
guess your
it's all part, right, of the community development where if you want to, power is essential, right? And that means for industry, but it means for the community. And it's one of those things that may actually, you know, help to bring permanent power to a community, right?
Absolutely. I think it's so important because we're on diesel generation right now, and the diesel isn't a good source as well. Not only is it, very, it's caused a lot of pollution, but in addition to that, if we ever wanted to expand in terms of housing infrastructure and even economic development, we're stymied by that because the diesel just is not enough power for any kind of long-term economic development solution for our community.
Yeah.
I guess you would be experiencing brownouts and such so forth with that diesel and that
Yeah.
solar. So that's unfortunate. That's too bad. So with your with lac des Îles or that palladium on the downswing right now, Wilfred, what is it that you might be trying to do with your catering company that you do have?
Well, we're still providing that service, and again, we don't know. We're hopeful it'll rebound back up to markets where it's, again the mine is profitable and moving ahead. But we don't know, right? It's the international markets that determine whether or not that mine will stay open or not. There was huge layoffs last December, and the price of palladium right now is at one of the is low, very low, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the economic forecast may be. And again, like I said, I think lithium had created some problems with that market, and also what's happening geopolitically as well. So
Well, it seems that the rage for electrification is calmed somewhat, right? With the problems that electric cars, they don't solve everything. They don't work in rural parts of the world. So I think, it's coming back to sort of a balance. So palladium probably will come into demand again as far as, catalytic converters and whatnot. It's part in green energy should.
yeah. Yeah, I would think so, but I'm not so certain because there was just an announcement today by Goodyear, investing millions of dollars in a tire factory in Napanee, Ontario. So you could see, and also companies that are building more hybrid vehicles I believe Toyota is going to be going into I think they're not going to be making any more internal combustible engines. So I'm not sure, if that, horse has left the farm or gate, as you might say. But yeah, it's uncertain right now. I think, and even Canada making all these investments in battery plants and so forth in Canada, I don't know if that trend will be reversed. And if you're looking at global warming, what's happening in the devastation of various parts of Canada, I would think that the internal combustible engine may be a thing of the past. And I think there are other sources such as I believe hydrogen is also being looked at now as a fuel source. So yeah, the technology is changing quite quickly.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
agree.
if they do carry on with battery plants and whatnot, then lithium, nickel, cobalt will all have to be sourced from somewhere.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
There's been actually, it was just raised to us today. There's an opportunity actually with communities in the exploration side to start looking at getting directly involved with environmental sides and looking at launching their own environmental teams. And companies such as the one that we're able to work with, they were suggesting water monitoring, that looking at that angle, heading down that road. So it does look like there's an opportunity there for communities. It's just a matter of organizing and being able to put some effort towards it.
Yeah, I think our environment is monitoring is really crucial. And again, like I said earlier, when you're looking at any type of studies, you'd have to have that requisite background to understand, what they actually mean. Someone that doesn't have say, a science background, it's very hard for them to understand, some of those scientific terms. But someone that has that environmental background, and if you have that person that's working for your community, it makes it much easier to understand, and they could explain to you in greater detail, what are the negative impacts of some of those concerns they may have.
Wow, this is flown by, guys. Just to let you know, like we've eaten up 30 minutes for sure on this. So I know at some point we'd like to bring you back on, Wilfred.
Yeah,
But
Yeah, great discussion. Thanks very much. That was great.
yes, it was very enlightening. So
thank you.
your knowledge is greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you both.
With that, just to let you know that the views represented, I didn't say this at the beginning, the views represented are just that of the guest and not of Talon Talks. So with that, Chief Wilfred King from Gull Bay, we appreciate you being our guest.
Thank you
And
very much.
miigwech.
Thank you, Miigwech.
But
Well, that was a very interesting. That was actually a really really good show, Dale.
that's that kind of discussion that goes a long way, I think, because he gets how the business works, right? And if you're gonna, provide benefits and get like he's bang on the money, right? About getting in early. He's like totally aligned with us. You'd think he was reading our minds.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. He understands that, and not only that, it allows him his knowledge as a lawyer gives him that background also. And I guess almost like a leg up when you're discussing with any exploration in the area or mining companies. So yeah, it was a good discussion. So
For sure.
everybody, please, if you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we look forward to seeing you on our next podcast. Our next gentleman that we're going to have on would be leading us into the investment side. So stay tuned for that. Talk to everybody later.
Thanks. Bye.
Goodbye.